Texas thought it found a way to cheat in the next election cycle and get away with it at Trump's request, by the way. They were originally resistant. They tried to redraw the map and blatantly gerrymander and carve up Black and Latino communities and lock in more seats for the GOP because they know they were going to lose the midterms. They're going to get crushed. And the courts just blew it up. In fact, a federal judge, a conservative federal judge appointed by Trump himself, blew up Trump's own plan to try to cheat in Texas. And we're going to cover that today. We're going to unpack the opinion. We're going to unpack the lead up to this and how it blew up in Trump's face. I'm Shant Karnikian. That's Brian Kabateck over there joining me today on Civil Action on the Legal AF Network. Just a reminder before we dive in, if you like this content, hit that subscribe button. If you like all the other contributors on Legal AF, even if you don't like me or Brian and we're not that entertaining, there's plenty of great folks on the channel aside from us. No, but really, if you like it, please support the channel. Brian, where do we dive in here on this issue?
Well, I had so many places you could go here. I mean, first of all, let me explain the process and procedure in Texas. It is that the federal courts there, instead of having the case go to a lower court, a district court, it goes immediately to a 3-judge panel on any issue involving the racial makeup of the district. So that means that it can go straight to the Supreme Court next to try to get a quick ruling on this.
Yeah.
And we're not there yet. But the first thing is, Shant, what happens when you have a Trump appointed judge who rules against the Trump administration? What does that tell you?
He's an activist liberal judge. That's what that tells me. No, it tells you that what Trump is trying to do is so problematic that even one of his own, puppets or someone he handpicked is going against him. I mean, that tells you.
I mean, I don't think this judge is necessarily a puppet. The judge
maybe that's true.
So a Trump judge and an Obama judge ruled against the Trump administration. The third judge appointed by Ronald Reagan, which means, he's obviously a little older and a little more senior, ruled in favor of Texas, but it's 2-1. So that carries the day. And this eliminates the entire Texas redistricting plan. So on what basis are they, basically hanging their hat saying that it was illegal redistricting?
Well, because it divides up the districts along racial lines, which even this Supreme Court has specifically said that you cannot do. That's the one area where they've said you can't
clear about this. I want to be very clear about this. It's not that they're putting, in the largest 2 groups, by the way, growing groups in the state of Texas are Blacks and Latinos over the last decade. So very large growing. It isn't that it takes necessarily all the African-American voters or all the Latino voters and put them into a district where they can elect somebody to represent them. Instead, it dilutes them enough.
Yeah.
Right? To where, they don't really have a voice. And that's the problem.
Yeah. Well, there's 2 ways, and we've talked about this before. I think we have an episode out there about gerrymandering and how, manipulating districts works. And one way is to break up and dilute communities that would otherwise vote in a unified manner. And clearly here they expect the Black and Latino communities to vote Democrat. So they've tried to break them up. They tried to create 5 new districts that would give them Republican votes in order to ensure or increase their odds of winning the midterms. And remarkably, the best part of this is that in the opinion, the court points out that had they have just redrawn these lines just on, partisan lines and didn't come out and, blatantly do it by skin color, they would have been able to go through with this. But it has concluded that the court concluded that the DOJ and Texas kind of work together to re-engineer these districts based on skin color, to use skin color as a factor.
It didn't take a lot for them to reach that conclusion, Shant, because the Department of Justice sent a letter to Texas in part saying that they wanted to make sure that there was no single racial or ethnic group that constituted a majority.
Yep.
Or that they put non-white voters together to constitute a majority. They came right out and said it.
They straight up spelled it out. The DOJ Civil Rights Division said, in fact, what's another thing that's astounding that I'll admit, I admittedly didn't know was initially when Trump went to Texas to try to do this and convince them to do this, Republicans were actually resistant, including Greg Abbott, the governor there. Who's not, he doesn't love the liberals, but even he was resistant because they were worried about backlash because of how blatantly
Well, they were
partisan
worried
this
about
movie.
exactly what happening, right?
That's true.
That was their
That's
concern.
true.
It isn't like Greg Abbott woke up one day and said he wants to help his brown and black brothers.
No,
They
they kind of, I guess they knew that this would happen. They were worried about backlash because it's so blatantly improper. But the DOJ sent them a letter threatening to sue Texas if they didn't go through with this. So they went through with it. They voted for it. And now it has blown up in Trump's face because of just how blatantly racist the move was. And you can't do that.
Just because I want to keep digging down on this, the letter apparently says from my research that the Department of Justice wanted to rectify these race-based considerations. So normally before Trump became president this year, when I said the government saying they wanted to rectify race-based considerations, it was usually because there was discrimination against people of color or women, right? Or women of color, I should say. And instead now the race-based threats that they were making was you actually did make decisions based on race-based to benefit people of color.
Yeah.
And we're going to come after you and we're going to sue you if you don't clarify it.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to say, though, that regardless of what Governor Abbott may or may not have said, that didn't take a lot of persuading.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's really wild. So let's talk a little bit about, the judge here. And look, I said, oh, he's a puppet. But what I meant is Trump thinks it would be a puppet for him. It would be a slam dunk that he could get any policy past a judge like this. That's partly why he probably appointed him. But this guy isn't some liberal crusader. He's a conservative, Trump appointed judge. His career has been, supported by Texas Republicans. So he's by no means a, liberal sympathizer or overly liberal judge. And look, I like to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's probably apolitical on stuff like this. And he looked at this and he wrote a very long opinion, I think in excess of 100 pages, saying that this likely violates the Voting Rights Act and the Constitution. It's basically racial gerrymandering, which you cannot do. There's no dispute about that. You objectively cannot do that. So
Ken Paxton, who's the Attorney General of the state of Texas and someone we've profiled before as a MAGA Muppet, actually came out and said afterwards that the quote, big, beautiful map was entirely legal, indicating to me that Ken missed that day in law school. Yeah. But he wanted to specifically, like I've said, like you and I both said before, Shant, so much of what goes on is people like Ken Paxton playing to an audience of one. That one beat Donald Trump, right?
That's right. That's right. And it's starting to blow up in people's faces,
Right. And interestingly, this comes on the heels of Indiana this last week saying they were not going to follow the Trump administration directive and they were not going to redistrict. This court specifically came out and said you have to go back to 2021 maps.
Yeah.
And you have to follow those 2021 maps. Of course, it'll be very interesting to see if Justice Alito of the United States Supreme Court, who is responsible, each justice has part of the country that they're responsible for reviewing for automatic stays and for emergency orders. If he issues such an order, which he very well may, and it may reach the entire United States Supreme Court, but it would have to reach it relatively quickly because we're now less than 365 days away from elections in Texas. We're much less than 365 days away from primaries in Texas, right? So I mean, look, this is just, and we've been saying this is just like, it's like at some point, Shant, the chickens are coming home to roost.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. That's right. So, we'll keep you posted on this. Stay tuned. We'll see what Alito does here and what the Supreme Court does, if they take it up or not. But I think this is just another example of our judicial system coming in to save the day. This time, it's ironically a Trump-appointed judge noticing what they tried to do here, racial engineering, improper gerrymandering, and he stopped it. It got shut down. And the last line of defense against autocrats like Trump, I've always said this from day one when we started doing these, is our judicial system. It's lawyers and judges doing their job, upholding the Constitution and protecting democracy. And hopefully we keep seeing more and more of this. I'm Shant Karnikian. That's Brian Kabateck. This has been another installment of Civil Action on the Legal AF Network. I hope you enjoy this content. If you do, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, reach out to us. We love hearing from you, and we'll see you on the next one.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.